Hello, and welcome to the Community Woodlands Project, which is brought to you by the National Lottery Heritage Fund in conjunction with the National Forest Company and the Rural Community Council of Leicestershire. I'd just like to say a big thank you to Lucy and Kaylee for inviting us along this afternoon to talk about the project. So a big thanks. Thank you very much. So the project is basically funded by the National Lottery Heritage Fund. Oh, where's my screen gone? Sorry about that. I seem to have lost my PowerPoint. That's better.
It froze at my end as well, Kevin, so it could be just the tech. Don't panic.
Right, smash it.
Yeah, we can see it.
Have we got it?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. It'll be all right on the night. So the project is brought to you by the National Lottery Heritage Fund Initiative. And basically, we've been granted funds to complete works over the next 2 years. The aim of the project is to create 10 new community woodlands or orchards within the borders of the National Forest in conjunction with creating volunteer groups to manage and maintain them, but whilst receiving training to do so. So whilst the project is looking to create the 10 new community woodlands, the criteria for eligibility within the scheme in terms of planting sites is quite strict, and we've been told it can only be within the borders of the National Forest, as indicated on the following slide. Although the planting sites need to be within those borders, if people want to volunteer to maintain the sites, they're quite welcome to come along and become part of the groups that we make. So as part of the aim of the project is also to create community groups to manage and maintain the woodland areas. The RCC was brought on board to provide a dedicated community engagement strategy to reach members of the public and provide a tailored programme of community engagement designed to recruit volunteers and new members of groups to aid in management and maintenance of the woodland areas so that it can be enjoyed for generations to come. Tailored strategies where events such as the Rural Community Council coffee van will attend a local area to promote your participation in the project and recruit new members. For instance, we've currently got a site at Colville Community Park in Leicestershire, and the group there is the Friends of Colville Park. We've held several events so far to swell that group, to look after the community orchard and sensory garden that they'll be having there as part of the project. I'm glad to say that the 2 events that we've held so far have been quite successful, and we've had a few new members sign up to grow that group and swell that group out. So the community engagement strategy is really important, and it's all as part of this package. So project participants will receive the benefit of working with the team's dedicated woodland design expert. Our aim is to work with communities to plan and design a woodland area that works for them in terms of what they wish to use it for. A woodland is not just about trees, but consider access to your woodland with paths made as part of the design to allow access for everyone to the area, and join in with activities that you as a community want to do. Through the project, there are also grants available to undertake these works, such as path creation. Great woodland design follows numerous principles, and that expertise is at your fingertips if you come along and decide to participate in the project. And the best of all, the expertise and knowledge is paid for by the National Lottery Heritage Fund, meaning no cost to local communities, parish councils or councils themselves. Creating volunteer groups to manage and maintain the new woodland or orchard areas, volunteers will be provided with all the training needed to successfully oversee and develop their space for years to come. Volunteers will also receive management training where essential office inputs are provided for pivotal tasks such as health and safety assessments, grant applications, or even basic tasks such as, if your woodland is to stage events throughout the years, calendar upkeep and training for doing that. Volunteers will also benefit from practical maintenance training in key woodland maintenance tasks such as thinning an area, clearance, pruning. There are numerous tasks that need to be undertaken to successfully manage a woodland area, but as part of the project, there is a dedicated programme to help teach the skills needed to do so. So, why is it so important that the community owns and manages the Woodland Project? Because it can and will unlock your community's potential by driving the project forward. Things such as decision making. The benefits of managing the woodland are that your local community, get to be at the forefront of all the decision making processes, whether this be to purchase or lease land where the woodland is planted, to key decisions as the project progresses, such as where to locate your woodland, the design and planning of it, and even what the woodland is to be used for and what amenities and activities to provide. You, as the driving force, will play a key role in the success of the project. And really, at the heart of this project is that community involvement right from the very start, from initial design plan to managing and maintaining it years beyond. So also enhancing community cohesion. The community at the forefront of the project also enables all members of the local community, regardless of age, cultural background, or anything else, to be involved in every step of the process. Making decisions together on key issues can instill a sense of community togetherness and strength. Statistics have also shown that local communities taking charge of the project, playing a key role in the project's progression, creates a sense of ownership, responsibility and pride for the area. Analysis also shows that where this has been a key factor, the likelihood of vandalism, fly tipping and antisocial behaviour is reduced. Communities with a strong sense of pride and ownership of the area have also seen that good management of the woodland encourages woodland flora fauna in addition to wildlife in the area thrive. A thriving community woodland and its management often encourages local enterprise also to engage with the project for mutual benefit. Initiatives that we've come across, such as the Staffordshire Wood Fuel Group, have been created where waste wood from a newly created community woodland in Staffordshire is brought by the local council and used to fuel an eco-friendly building, which has the potential to save that local council £250,000 per annum, all money saved that can benefit local communities in other areas of business. So community woodland really does have why the community benefits, not just enhancing the area that we live in. So there are numerous benefits to creating a community woodland. Some of these are ecological. A woodland can provide a harmonious, tranquil place for people and nature for generations to experience and enjoy. Consider, if you will, a greener planet, take my false teeth out, and that must start at a local level. And what better way than right here in your own community? The plantation of trees is by far one of the best ways that carbon dioxide in the atmosphere can be reduced, meaning cleaner air quality and the beginnings of a healthier planet for our children and theirs to enjoy, all whilst your community woodland is growing and naturally dispersing greenhouse gases and combating climate change. Woodland is also essential to maintaining our local wildlife, which is so important to our ecosystem. Take, for example, the bumblebee, who collects pollen and whilst doing so germinates plant life, continuing the pollination process, ensuring new plant life is able to flourish. The creation and maintaining of community woodlands is so important to sustain current wildlife habitat, but also create new ones, encouraging the ecosystem to thrive and flourish. And parts of Leicestershire being in the National Forest, we're so lucky that we've got quite a few of these areas about, and I would love, and the project would love, to create more. And it's not just in the forest that we've got these areas. We have them in other parts of Leicestershire, and I think we're really lucky being in Leicestershire that we've got those. So there are also societal and individual benefits that can be gained by a well-designed and maintained community woodland. Benefits such as increased mental and physical well-being can be experienced. The British Trust for Conservation Volunteers is a leading example of utilising woodland and green spaces to create green gyms. These are not gyms in the traditional sense, but by encouraging practical community conservation activities in green spaces, there is a benefit to both physical and mental health well-being. Individual physical and mental health well-being is particularly important, and studies have shown that walking through and looking at treed areas reduces stress and anxiety. Regular exercise in such spaces can reduce the risk of heart disease and obesity, benefits that will no doubt reduce impact on local services such as our GPs and the NHS, whilst ensuring the community benefits from being fitter and healthier. Consider also, if you will, the benefit of land restoration. Areas of local land where activities such as mining have scarred and ruined both the landscape and habitats. What better way to reclaim them than by planting a community woodland, turning it back into an area of natural beauty and ecology. Such reclamations can increase both the value of the land, but also local housing. Such an area was in Whittick near Colville, Leicestershire, where the open mining quarry was filled with water, creating Hermitage Lake. Trees, flora and fauna are also planted, creating a tranquil environment for both people and nature to thrive together. And this is a space that is particularly close to my heart, as I use it quite regular, and it's been an absolute massive benefit to my own mental health and well-being, and it's provided me with an impetus to get fitter as I walk there every day, and I really cannot stress the benefits that it does provide me as an individual. So community woodlands can also provide excellent locations to observe and learn about nature's biodiverse ecosystem. Studies in Norway suggest that pupils who spend part of their school time learning and playing in woodland has a positive influence on their skills development. Here in the UK, the Forestry Education Network is an organisation who engage with young persons and schools to support education and learning in woodland settings. They are able to assist in the implementation of such classes and signpost educational opportunities also. Woodland creation also introduces aspects of countryside to a local community, a place where local biodiversity can be studied as habitats introduced varied wildlife to areas such as the UK's willow warbler pictured on the slide below, which is currently on the Amber List Reconservation of Protected Species under the Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981. Considering the creation of new habitats through though bird life is just a part of that. As the woodland grows and thrives, consider other species such as squirrels, badgers, hedgehogs, bats, wood mice, moths and even beetles. Every part of a woodland is a home for an animal to inhabit and thrive, and with care, consideration and with a little forward planning, people and nature's bounty can thrive together for mutual benefit. Woodland also brings education opportunities in the form of activities such as guided walks, woodland craft and workshops such as coppicing. What better way to learn new skills than in nature itself? And again, one of the sites we've got, the Colville Park, a local artist has agreed to put on art classes for people that participate, and we've got from the landowner, the North West Leicestershire District Council, boards that will be erected for dedicated art use. So once it's up and running, it really could be something special. Another great benefit a community woodland can bring to its local community is that of ecological growth potential. Nature can provide many resources, both tangible and physical. One such benefit is the potential to increase visitors coming to your local area using your new community woodland to partake in activities such as dog walking, cycling and rambling. The potential is endless and solely up to you as a community. Since the COVID-19 pandemic, there has been an increase in UK households owning a dog by approximately 10%. Creation of local woodlands provides a fantastic opportunity to maximise the local economy by tapping into the need for more green spaces for people to undertake such activity. And remember, they are most likely to spend money at local shops and businesses whilst doing so. Well-designed, planted and maintained woodland areas can also play a significant role in a low-carbon economy. By using timber from the trees in buildings, fencing, furniture making, or even as a community forest in the south of the country, the production of cricket bats. So it's absolutely endless what you can do. Wood as a fuel can also be beneficial in the reduction of reliance on fuels such as gas. With good management and planning, this source is renewable and good for the environment, as new tree planting will further help the fight against global warming, all in your own backyard. Tree pulp can also be used to produce materials such as rayon, which can be used for making rope and sheeting. So as you can see, the products we can get from a community woodland are endless, really. So woodland areas can also provide a bounty of free products such as charcoal for local art groups and schools, foliage for forests and artisans. Planting fruit planting within the woodland can also produce opportunities for sustainable, renewable foraging of berries and fruits for the local community. Since the project began in October 22, my colleague Emma and I from the Rural Community Council have engaged with existing woodland groups to ascertain why volunteers get involved managing and maintaining a woodland, what they get out of it, and whether they will consider mentoring other new groups. As part of this engagement, Emma created a questionnaire which is being circulated amongst existing woodland groups, either via their closed Facebook community woodland group or via directly email existing members. These are some of the responses we have been given, and there has been a positive response offers to mentor new groups, which is absolutely fantastic. And as you can see, there's an whole array of reasons why people have gotten involved and continue to be involved, not just for physical and mental well-being impact, but it also provides opportunity to interact with other people. The absolute activities are endless. So the creation of a community woodland can seem a daunting task, but remember, we're here to help and provide assistance to help you achieve success in bringing into reality the benefits a community woodland can bring to your local community now, for the future and for years to come. If you will, a legacy for your own community. The National Forest Company website has a plethora of information and help and direction to assist you. For tasks such as create and design your community woodland, plant and manage your community woodland, once habitats are established, provide assistance with wildlife conservation, aid in the creation of making your community woodland accessible to all, help and guidance with outdoor activities, provide guidance in relation to making your woodland sustainable with activities such as tourism development and low carbon economy creation. All the information can be found on the National Forest website, and I'll put the links in the chat. We've also interacted with groups such as Calorton and Newlands Volunteer Group and Heartland Wood Fuel Group, who have agreed to act in a mentoring capacity for new groups that are created in the local area. Thank you for listening and inviting us along this afternoon again to present our project. I will make the presentation available in addition to the links to the NFC, the National Forest Company information, and inquiry platforms regards the National Forest Company and the Rural Community Council. My email address will also be there along with my colleague Emma's. Please feel free to ask any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. That was perfect. Thank you very much. Really informative. It just shows what the potential is, I think, with woodland in terms of the economic benefits as well as the environmental
Absolutely.
ones. So thank you very much for doing that. We do have somebody wanting to ask questions. So I'll give people chance to fire away. If they want to turn their mics on, they can do that or pop it in the chat. I don't know actually whether Kaylee might have to let people unmute.
I'll put my glasses on so I can read that.
I did put some links in the chat as well to, you mentioned green gyms. There's a bit of a report online about the green gym concept, and also I put a link into the Conservation Volunteers for Leicestershire and Rutland, who I believe do work with the woodland groups to teach how coppicing and tree felling, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the project itself, it's fantastic. I mean, I know I'm working on it, and I'm going to be a little bit biased, but to be honest, the amount of help and assistance that's available through it is absolutely fantastic. And to be honest, it's all accessible through the project. And the great thing is it's free. So, you know, it's all paid for by the National Lottery Heritage Fund. And I believe that the National Forest Company put some match funding towards the project as well. So we've got a number of sites already. I know I've mentioned the Colville Park one several times, but we've also got Sharpley Avenue playing fields up at Colville, which for anybody that's from that way on, it's near to the Meadow Lane and at the back of the rugby club. And to be fair, like I say, what we want to do is get community groups or individuals or groups involved right from the very start, so that they have a chance to sit down with our woodland design expert Charles and help create the spaces, because like it's no good us going along and designing a space and then the community coming and saying, actually, we wanted to do for argument's sake a green gym, but we've not planned in for it. It then wouldn't be that community aspect part of the project, if that makes sense. So, and that's why I felt it really important to get that slide where there was all bits and bobs coming in, because really at the heart of the project is the community, and we'll be led on what they want really. And that's why it's so important to mention potential activities that can be done, as well as the managing and maintaining of the space. So Yeah, and one thing I didn't mention was that it's just been brought to light yesterday, is that as part of the project there are grants available for new groups that are formed. I believe if existing groups form part of the groups as well, they'll be available to it. But there's grants for something like £400 for new tools and kit as well, all within the project as well. So it really does cover every aspect of what a new group and existing groups will need, if that makes sense.
Yeah. We've got some questions in the chat.
Yeah.
I'll read them out in case people haven't seen them. But the first one is, what's the carbon capture per area? Well, I think that's quite a difficult one to actually measure, because you have to measure it on the actual woodlands that are in existence at the moment. And I suppose you're talking about creating new ones, aren't you? So
Absolutely.
I think if that's certainly, I think it can be measured, and there is something called the Woodland Carbon Code that can be applied to woodlands. And I'll, whilst we're online and talking, I'll dig out the link to that. And it can be applied to certain areas, so it can be measured over time what the contribution is to woodland. But just to say that older trees sequester more carbon than younger ones. The other question was, what are the ecological values at a greater scale? I think that's an interesting one in terms of understanding what we mean by ecosystems. So it's the interlinking of various habitats and species. If you look at a woodland and its edges, they're just as important. And at a greater scale, I think if you think about the Lawton report, which was published in 2010, and there was a discussion about how we need to link up habitats and make them bigger and better. The greater scale of woodland communities is that you are putting more woodland islands into the potentially very intensive arable landscapes, and then maybe connecting through hedgerows and other woodlands. So the greater scale can be measured and mapped. You can see where the linkages are through aerial mapping of woodland, and you can also measure the ecological networks, the benefits to particular generic focal species associated with woodland, and how far they can move between various locations. So the values at greater scale, I think, are the aggregate benefit of all those woodlands, but also the connectivity that they provide. If that's answered the question, I hope. What rights could a volunteer group get if they took over the management of an area? Well, I think that's maybe one for you to answer, Kevin. But to me, that means rights as in, would they own the site, or would they have management responsibilities, I suppose?
I mean, what we're looking for in the project is the National Forest Company has been liaising with landowners, and they've been looking at purchasing land. And I know they have purchased a piece of land which they're looking at it's only in the early stages at the moment, so I don't want to name any names, but they've purchased a piece of land within the forest, and the idea is that it will become part of this project because it's going to be donated then to a local parish council, and the volunteer group then will have the rights over the land, if that makes sense. Although it's been purchased by the National Forest Company, my understanding is that it will be donated to that local parish council, and the NFC won't have any rights of ownership over it then, if that makes sense.
So in essence, the parish council become the landowner, but the volunteers are obviously the volunteers of the parish, and therefore they're a community representative group.
Absolutely.
We've got another question. Were promoting woodlands while at the same time considering allowing Tarmac to dig up one of the oldest woodlands in Charnwood outside of the Outwoods? Something seems quite conflicting has been discussed. Has this been discussed? It seems quite conflicting. Has this been discussed? Yeah, I think that's an interesting one, because I assume that's to do with the planning application that's happened, where somebody's wanting to develop a site and therefore has had needed to remove a woodland parcel in order to develop that. I think the issue is in a sense separate, because anyone can develop the land that they own and have a planning permission to do so. And planning law is in preference of development. That's the law for planning. Will always prefer development. And I think the decision made at the point where that planning application was put to Charnwood Borough Council would have been made on balance with all the evidence that was presented. What you're trying to do is separate to planning law and separate to people's rights, but what it's trying to do is to inject that spirit of, well, actually we do need more habitats in the landscape, we do need more woodlands, we are the poorest woodland cover in the country, one of the poorest counties for woodland cover, and so we have to mitigate the decisions of some landowners with others, and I think that's what you're attempting to do with this project, if I'm right, Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, if I take you back to the rights bit as well, I mean, I know that in terms of land that landowners own and they wish to become part of the project, then they'll sign some legal documentation along with the National Forest Company that obviously provides certain rights to volunteer groups that will be looking after and managing and maintaining the space, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And there's an agreement there that the space will also become open to the public. It doesn't necessarily mean 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, but it does mean the majority of the time that it will be a public space, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So to be fair, but yeah, I mean, to be fair, I can't comment on what local councils are doing with the planning applications and whatnot. I'm not honestly not qualified to be able to do that, so I can't for 1 minute comment on that. But what I can say is that as a project, I was quite keen to get involved with it on behalf of the Rural Community Council, because I benefit drastically myself from using the areas of woodland that we've got and seeing how diverse these areas are. And that's just from my mental health and physical well-being.
Yeah.
And I mean, being a local resident in Whittick, as I've said, I use the Hermitage Lake site a lot, but there's also the Sents Valley. There's places like Calorton Woods, and to be honest with you, as you can probably tell from the accent, I'm not originally from Leicestershire, but I have been here for nearly 30 years, and some of these places I didn't even know existed. Which is terrible, really, because like I say, they've just been so fantastic and aided me in getting over some mental health problems that I've had in relation to my health. So to be honest, that was why I was so passionate to get on board with the project, because I feel that, you know, not just as a local community, but as a legacy, if you will, to our descendants, our children, their children, and even their children. We've got a responsibility to look after the planet, and you know, while we've got the money available for this project, I think it'd be absolutely fantastic to get as much of it as we can in the Leicestershire borders of the forest, because that's the other thing. We work in with Leicestershire, Staffordshire and Derbyshire. It is truly within the borders of the forest. So
yeah,
you know, but yeah, I wouldn't like to comment on individual planning applications. That's I'm not qualified to do it. But what I can say is, if some people are taking their forests down, then what better way to negate that by planting new ones in our local area, where, you know, we're hoping to get the local buy-in from local communities and make these spaces something that don't just last a few years, but are things that can last generations.
Yeah, I think it's interesting what you've said there about community ownership, because it makes it a publicly valued piece of space, and so that's quite powerful. I'm just going to raise a point that's been made in the chat. We do have time. I know we're booked in, I think, till 3. So if you're happy to stay on, Kevin.
Yeah. No, I'm more than happy.
We've got a statement and a bit of a question as well. So I'll read it out. It says, I'm in an area that's potentially going to lose a huge swathe of established woodland. Sounds as though Abe and I are in the same area. So somebody else in the chat is also potentially in the same. I understand the decision has not been yet made. Is there any advice we can get to help raise the ecological value of the area and pulling a community group together to help protect this very important area? Well, I can answer that to a point, if that will help you, Kevin. I think the first step really is to understand what the existing value of that space is. Now,
I'll be honest, I'd like to know where it is as well.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be good to get some more information on that. If people are happy to contact Kevin, I'm sure he'd be Mount Sorrel, right? Okay.
Mount Sorrel.
So right, okay. That sounds like it might be something to do with, you said tarmac, is that to do with a quarry? Or somebody's typing, so that's yes, it is the quarry, right? Okay.
Right, okay.
So there is an application for a quarry in the location. I think, as I said, the key thing is to understand what the ecological value of the area is. So it's knowing and understanding the records that are available on species that have been recorded there, and the Leicestershire Rutland Environmental Record Centre will have some data if it's been recorded and it's been shared with the Record Office, and that can help sort of point to areas that could be harmed, you know, areas of ancient woodland, protected species, etc. And they will need to be considered by law in the planning application. Likewise, local wildlife sites have to be considered in the planning application. And I would imagine that the ecology team at Leicestershire County Council, if it's a quarry, because we are responsible for the mineral and waste plan, will be aware of this application and they will be giving comment on this. So if you wanted to contact the ecology department to understand what the mitigations might be for this, or indeed if they object to the application based on any rationale, you need to contact the planning ecologists at LCC. I'm happy to put you in touch with them if that's of any help to you. If you've got concerns and you want to raise those concerns with the rest of the community, it's really about understanding where community picks up information, whether that's your parish council website or Facebook or WhatsApp, and then sort of making them aware of the facts. I think it's really important when you're looking at trying to protect a site that you trade in facts with your community, because that will be very powerful in terms of the information and support that you want to information you want to give and support you want to get back. So I'm hoping that's helpful to you in terms of what I've said. There's another, I've just got to scroll down, so I think we've got some more comment. Bear with me. Can't move my scroll, it's not working. Where are we? Right, okay, yeah. Someone's also said that, like you, Kevin, they've benefited enormously from in health terms from the natural world. So yeah, I think that's very much the case. I mean, I certainly use my green spaces, whether it's rights of way around where I live or public parks, every day. I've got dogs, but even if I didn't have dogs, I'd still be going out walking because I find it really relaxing. It takes the tension out of my shoulders when you've been sat at a computer most of the day. It just breaks the day up. It's really, really important. And because when you're out in nature, you never know what you're going to see. Absolutely. So that restorative impact of seeing something unexpected, whether it's, you know, a blue tit, a nuthatch, you might even, if it's early morning, you might even see a badger or something of that nature, is absolutely wonderful. And it really lifts your spirits, I think. And when we hear a lot of bad news in the media, I think these little things can make such a difference to our lives. And so, yeah, I totally understand where yourself and Sin are coming from on that one. We've got a new message in. Yeah, Caroline said, thank you. Yes, that will be helpful. Caroline, if you want my email address too, I'll pop it in the chat, my email address, so you can email me, or I'll put the our environment team email address. And if you've got any specific questions about that an issue, then you can write to me and I can see if I can help in any other way. But planning applications are a tricky animal to wrestle with, because there are so many things that have to be considered by the planners when they're making a decision. So yeah, okay. Any more questions before we finish this afternoon, and you can all get out into the woodlands near you and enjoy the rest of this today. So yeah, Sue Stevenson, I think you are among another couple of people who have raised the issue about the woodlands at Mount Sorrel. There are people in this meeting that have raised that one. I've given my email address for any advice I can give, and links to the Leicestershire Record Office and the ecologist to talk to about it. Kevin's given his links, so if you are wanting to do something with a community woodland in Mount Sorrel as a mitigation, maybe, depending on what the outcome of the planning application is, Kevin's there to maybe help you set something up there. And as you said here, Caroline, yeah, corporate social responsibility, CSR, really important actually in terms of nature conservation, because it pays for lots of things to be done. We've had funding from Airwick Botanica via Rivers Trust for doing grassland restoration, and that's a CSR programme, really important. Yeah, I agree. I think there's opportunities for you to get the best out of things that are happening in your area, and I think that's something it's worth grappling with, and maybe even a conversation with the developers of that woodland to find out how they can reduce the impact for you as a community, and maybe support new woodlands. And maybe it's something, Kevin, that you could get involved with. Happy to have further conversations outside of this meeting if that helps.
Yeah, definitely. If as I say, if people want to get in touch, I'm quite happy to reach back out and have some conversations. That's what I'm here for. And as I say, the more people we can get involved, the better, really.
Yeah. Okay. Right, I think somebody else is typing. Right, we've got one more question, I think. Do we have planned new planted woodland? Is there any details such as maintenance requirements, including approximate hours of maintenance per acre per year? I assume you're relating to the Charnwood, this corn quarry application, Abe. If that's the case, just say yay or nay. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. There will be in the application, the developers will need to say what their mitigation will be for any loss of habitat that's currently there. And I don't know whether any of you are aware, but it's worth looking on the internet about this. There is something called biodiversity net gain, which will become a legal requirement in November 2023 for all developers to ensure 10% net gain. So it's not just replacing what was lost, it's adding 10% of species and habitats as part of their development. Now, it's not legal, it's not mandatory at the moment, but obviously it's still in the National Planning Policy Framework as a voluntary thing to do, net gain. And I know that our ecologists at Leicestershire are pushing developers for a net gain on sites, but moreover, trying to mitigate what's happening to make sure that net gain actually happens on site and isn't offset somewhere else. That's really important for nature. So yeah, hopefully that information will help. But I look forward to your emails anyway, outside the meeting. Yes, the meeting is recorded. We have recorded it. So we will be sharing this on social media, won't we, Kevin?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You're quite right. Somebody's put in there, no replacement for old wood. And ancient woodland under the net gain rules is not something that can be replaced. It has to be avoided in terms of harm where possible. So I'm not sure what the design for the plan is for the quarry, but I would imagine that they'll need to try and demonstrate if they can avoid causing harm to the woodland in terms of extraction and management of the quarry. But as I'm not close to it, like Kevin, I'm not involved with planning. I have some experience of planning, but I'm not a planner and I'm not an expert. So I can only guide you in terms of who best to speak to. Yeah. I'll wait for one more question because I think somebody's typing, and then maybe we will close the session. Scroll down so I can't see. Which social media platform? Right, Kaylee, it's going to be the Leicestershire County Council Facebook page, isn't it?
Yeah, so I'll share it on all of our corporate socials, well, the majority of them, so Facebook, Twitter. I'll probably pop a link on Instagram stories if that's your kind of thing too. Yeah,
somewhere. Well, let us know where it is, because if these people email me, then I can at least tell them where to go to look. But
the main platform it'll be available on is YouTube, so all the socials are linked to the YouTube.
Right, so if they type Community Woodland in RCC, it should come up in YouTube, will it? Or is that out? Yeah.
I'll probably include Leicestershire County Council.
Right, okay.
Yeah, it should come up.
Yeah. So you said about it that the developers said it's not an ancient woodland. Ancient woodland is a very specific designation as well. It's to do with the soils. So if it doesn't meet that criteria, it may not be an ancient woodland. And yes, they'll have planted it in 1986, but that won't classify as an ancient woodland. You're going back to sort of the 1600s really to classify as an ancient woodland. But there are definitions for it and there are criteria. And in fact, if you're interested to know what the criteria for designating an ancient woodland is, the County Council ran a course last year on surveying woodlands to see if they are ancient or have evidence of ancient woodland species. And I do have a colleague who can give you criteria on what to look for an ancient woodland. But the local wildlife site criteria also covers it. So if you type what local wildlife site into Google, it will tell you what criteria meets an ancient woodland. Yeah. Yes, I can see what you're saying, that they've established a woodland in 1986 and yeah, it's now of a certain growth maturity, which you feel you wouldn't want to lose, which I totally understand that. But bear in mind, I suppose, one of the good things is it has been there for a number of years and it has given populations of species access to food sources through their life cycles. And I think that's really important to remember is we do have a changing planet. It's just making sure the balance is right is key. And I think at the moment, from a lot of the talks we've given this week, there is an imbalance with what humans are doing to the planet and the problems we're creating for ourselves with the loss of species and habitat and air quality, water quality, etc. So we have got a lot of work to do and we do need to make sure we get the best out of development. Okay, I think I'm going to close it now. If anyone has got any questions, you've got the email addresses for Kevin and myself. And thank you for joining us on a Saturday afternoon. Brilliant.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
And I'll be in touch, Kevin.
Smash it. Yeah, have a good one.
Yeah, and you take care. Thanks very much, Kaylee. Thanks for all
everybody
for joining. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.